to one of the most important phases in our conference, the panel discussion. Here, you all will get a very good experience on what the experts in the field have to say on evolving careers in data science through their own experiences. So first, let me introduce the moderator of the panel discussion, Poornika Wickramasuriya. Poornika is currently serving as a Principal Analytics Delivery at Octave and Assistant Vice President at John Keells Holdings PLC. She has an overall 6 years of experience in the field of data science and analytics. Prior to Octave, she was associated with Millennium IT ESP, taking on different roles in data science, business intelligence, and network engineering. She received her MBA from the Postgraduate Institute of Management, University of Sri Lanka Conference, and her BSc Engineering in Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering from the University of Moderator. So now I invite the host for the panel discussion, Poornika Wickramasuriya, to conduct the session. Over to you, Poornika.
Am I audible and visible, Soumya?
Yes, Poornika.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this panel discussion on evolving careers of data science and sharing experiences. First of all, I would like to warmly welcome all of you on behalf of WiDS to this panel discussion segment. As we all know, data science is a rapidly evolving area and there are a lot of career opportunities available in the market. So through this panel discussion, we try to provide some insights into career opportunities available across different roles, and also talk about the key knowledge areas and skills required for you to be successful in your data science career. And we will also be touching upon some of the most common challenges in the data science field. And towards the end of the session, we like to share some of the personal experiences of our panelists and their inspiring journeys. So we hope this panel discussion will empower more and more women to participate in the data science domain. So with us, we have 4 esteemed and extremely qualified panelists joining with us today. All of them are Sri Lankan women data science professionals who have been very successful in their data science career. So on behalf of WiDS, I would like to warmly welcome all the 4 panelists to the panel discussion. So before we kickstart our round of questions, I would like to give a short introduction to all the panelists, starting with Dr. Dhanushi Wijeyakulasuriya. Dhanushi is a senior data scientist on experimentation platform team at Microsoft Corporation. So before joining Microsoft, she worked as a research assistant at the Statistical Consulting Center at Penn State University. And prior to that, she also held roles at Lubrizol Corporation USA and Acuity Knowledge Partners Sri Lanka. So Dhanushi holds a PhD in statistics with a graduate minor in computational science from Penn State University. And she got her BSc in industrial statistics from University of Colombo. Hi, Dhanushi. Welcome to the panel.
Hello.
So next panelist is Devini Senaratna. She is currently working as a research scientist at Meta, formerly known as Facebook. She has over 9 years of experience in the field, and she has held various roles across different organizations, starting from Rome Analytics, Linear Squared, and Booking.com. She also holds a MSc in statistics from Stanford University, and she has a BSc in statistics from University of Colombo. Hi, Devini. We are glad to have you here in the panel discussion, and warm welcome to you as well.
Thank you, Poornika.
Our next panelist is Mandu Jayasundera. So Mandu is currently serving as a data scientist at TikTok, specializing in experimentation, causal inference, and edtech. So prior to that role, she held roles at Meta, Travelers, Amber Research, and Frontier Research. She also has over 10 years of experience in the data science field. Mandu holds a MSc in statistics from Yale University and a BSc in statistics from University of Colombo. Hi, Mandu. Welcome to the panel.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so our last panelist, but not the least, is Dr. Rashmi Bomiriya. So Rashmi is the Managing Director of RS Metrics Asia Holdings Limited, and she is also the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Data Scientist for RS Metrics USA. So she has been associated with RS Metrics for over 9 years now, and prior to that, she held roles at Penn State University and Amba Research. Rashmi holds a PhD in statistics from Penn State University, and she got her BSc in statistics from University of Colombo. Rashmi, a warm welcome to you as well.
Yeah, thank you, Poornika.
Okay, so it's a privilege to have all 4 of you in a single forum, and we are so happy to have you here. And thank you so much for joining this panel discussion. I know for some of you, it's late night or early in the morning over there. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So before we move on to the discussion, a quick reminder to the audience, we'll be taking few questions at the end of the panel discussion. I urge you to send your questions via chat from now onwards, so we can review and pick questions at the end of the session. So moving on to the first round of questions, this will be mainly on the skills and knowledge required to be in the data science domain, and also the career options available in the field. So I'll start off with Dhanushi. So Dhanushi, you work for one of the global players in the AI and data domain, right? So with your experience, can you describe the different roles available in the data science domain, and what kind of team structures that you have seen in which these roles operate?
Thanks, Poornika. So the role of data scientist at Microsoft can mean very different things depending on the team that you are in. And there are related roles as well. And I would say like a data engineer, machine learning engineer, these visualization engineer, these roles all have overlap with what a data scientist's role is. So I can talk a bit about myself as a data scientist on the experimentation platform team. First, I'm bringing my expertise as a statistician. Also, I work very closely on telemetry and business reporting for my team. And so I work very closely with our infrastructure teams, with our data engineers. Microsoft actually doesn't have data engineers, but our devs who work in data engineering. And then very closely, and I do visualization, analytics and things like that for my team. But I sometimes have to put on like a PM hat when I have to work on some projects and kind of drive those. And so I would say it really depends on the team. Sometimes you can have a centralized data science team where it's, for example, my team is centralized, where we it's a big team of data scientists, and our customers are other teams within Microsoft, and we help them with experimentation. But at the same time, you can be a data scientist on a product team where you are the only data scientist, or maybe there are just 2 of you, and you then have to work with devs and PMs. So it's kind of, you have to kind of be mindful of these different structures in place. I would say what I have seen in my experience is, for someone starting out, it can sometimes be difficult when you're the only data scientist on a team, because sometimes you feel like, oh, you don't have enough support to ask people to learn. Like if you are on a team with a lot of data scientists, I feel like it's kind of easier to get started. But there are pros and cons of either. But what I want to kind of say is, the term data scientist can mean so many different things. So it really depends on the team. And so if you're interested, you have to be very specific in what you look for. So kind of go under the hood of this term to identify what competencies you have and what you bring to the table, and what type of role really fits that. Yeah, that's what I have to share.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dhanushi. That was a comprehensive answer. Thank you so much for that. So the next question I have is for Mandu. So Mandu, Dhanushi spoke about the different roles that we have in data science domain. I want you to touch upon the key knowledge areas and skills required to be successful in your data science career. So you also have experience in working at 2 leading multinational companies in the data and AI space. So I think you can explain very well on what skills and knowledge are required on those companies. And I have a second part of your question. Is it possible for someone in another domain to transition to a data science career?
Yeah. So I think throughout these sessions, I have heard we have had like few technical talks and like a keynote presentation on various technical aspects. So as we have heard before, like broadly, I feel like data scientists need both technical and non-technical skills. So I think from my experience, I feel like there are like 5 broad technical skills that any data scientist should have. So like the first one, I feel like the data scientists need to be very comfortable with handling data, understanding databases, basically manipulating. So basically querying databases like using SQL, right? And I think we heard like a really good lightning session on like data engineering. So having like some data engineering skills and also like the background knowledge on how databases work is like really essential. So I think that's like the first thing where you want to know how to get the data, before you analyze. So the second thing is on like data analysis, right? So like now once you get the data, like how do you analyze it? So for that, you need like coding languages. So like R, Python, whichever you're comfortable with, you should be able to like analyze data, basically present it, and also visualizing. So now there are like lots of visualization tools like Tableau, Power BI. So you should be able to kind of use those skills, use those kind of tools. And then thirdly is about A/B testing. So basically, I mean, now companies, go beyond correlations to make decisions. So they want to run experiments and be able to draw conclusions from like these causal relationships. So for that, I think data scientists need to have like a really good foundation in understanding experimentation design, or you call it design of experiments, and how do you use like observational data to draw those causal relationships. So that's when causal inference kind of comes into play. So that's something actually I use on a day-to-day basis, and I can I can like really see now a lot of teams who didn't use like these experiments or observational data to draw conclusions is now like actively using, and it's gaining a lot of popularity. And then fourthly, I feel statistics, I think people always say statistics is important, but I think having like the right foundations is very important when you try to analyze data, because you need to know the caveats, like the gaps and the watchouts. So being able to do like hypothesis testing, multivariate statistics, and like just drawing inferences from data is like really important using statistics. And then finally, I know we heard a lot about machine learning in the previous talks as well, like how you use like time series to predict or forecast. So those are really important. And like, so at the very minimum, I think like data scientists should be able to use supervised to first understand what unsupervised and supervised learning is. Being able to build like a very basic model is important. So these are like very basic skills that I think employers look for in candidates. And like I think like Dhanushi said, and also in like previous discussions, you can see that like all of those skills are like not like important for every role at the same intensity. So the expertise, depends on the role that you are going to apply or you're going to work in the team, right? So in my case, like I use a lot of like A/B testing, experimentation, causal inference, and also like ETL and data analysis, right? I don't use a lot of machine learning, but I do use some aspects. So you don't know when you will learn, like when you use like some of these skills. So because of that, you need to have it in your toolbox, right? So I won't go in detail. I think I am probably over time. But I just want to kind of like one more thing, because I think we talked so much about technical skills. So I really want to like highlight that data scientist like role goes beyond like, doing a data related task. So they are responsible to work with stakeholders and make sure those stakeholders are like driving decisions with data. So you are supposed to, as a data scientist, to take whatever the tasks or the solutions that you have built with data science and influence them with your data, like data solutions, so that they make data-driven decisions or like adapt whatever the products. So I think that, so to kind of achieve that, you need soft skills like being able to convince your stakeholders. Basically, communication needs to be good, writing, presenting, stakeholder management. All of those are really crucial, to be impactful as a data scientist. And this is the real impact actually you expect from a data scientist. That's what employers also really look for. And to answer your last question about how you can switch from different domains to data science, so this actually happens a lot within Silicon Valley, and I think in many, I would say, hubs for data science, where people are switching from like, I think, non-technical backgrounds to technical, so the data science basically. And I actually currently work with a lot of people who come from economics, social sciences, psychology, basically philosophy, even literature, because I think another, I think someone talked about like how like there are lots of now, basically free online courses. So the barrier to entry to data science is actually now lower. So if anyone can actually, if they have the time and the willpower to learn these skills that I mentioned, like they can easily, I would say, build up on these skill sets, because it's a matter of, I think, time and like how much you're willing to put into to kind of, go through the learning curve. So yeah, so I think those are my, thoughts on the skills and, switching careers.
Okay. Thanks, Mandu. I think that was a wonderful explanation. If I had to summarize the points, you talk about the soft skills, the importance of soft skills other than the basic skills like stats, mathematics, and computer science. I think so. Audience over there, if anyone is willing to join data science from another domain, so there's opportunity for you all. There are a lot of career options. You can maybe start with a less technical job role, and then maybe you can build up your career on the data science front. So that option is open. So that's the beauty of the data science field. It's available for everyone. Yeah. So my next question, I would like to go with Devini. So Devini, you also has worked for leading global giant in the data and AI space, right? You are currently a research assistant at Meta. So I also seen that you have worked across multiple industry domains, starting from healthcare to hospitality, travel, digital marketing, and all that. So I want you to touch about the industry applications of data science. And apart from all those basic roles that Dhanushi spoke about, are there any specific roles when it comes to different industry domains? Yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Poornika. So maybe I'll just take a step back. So data science as a field, I think, exploded because data exploded somewhere around like the 2000s. And the kind of roles as well as analyses you can do with data obviously depends on the kind of data you get in these domains. So that is like the granularity of the data. Say you work in a stock exchange, you have like almost at like seconds, to the volume of the data, to the type of the data. So whether it's text data or image data or something else. So just keeping that in mind, I try to tie up what Dhanushi and Mandu said, as well as it was in the lightning talks, and bundle it into like two groups. So firstly, you get the general roles, which you get across pretty much every company. And that, the backbone of it, and this has been mentioned before, but I want to highlight it again, are the data engineering roles, which is the pipelines and the maintenance of data. And if you mess that up, everything else, which is dependent on that, doesn't tie up. So firstly, you get the data engineering roles, and the complexity of this depends on the type of company and the scale of it and the type of data. And then again, what like Dhanushi and Mandu mentioned, you have like the analytics roles. These vary from coming up with insights to visualizations. One thing I want to mention before I jump, I think there's this assumption that sometimes it's like, I don't know, like a repetitive task, but strangely, even with like the advances in AI, I think there's a lot of thinking and intuition that goes into the analytics component where you will come up with insights, both for like product decisions and like what angle you should go in, but also strategic decisions, like long-term, what decisions you should go in. So what I'm trying to say is like, I don't want to underestimate the importance of analytics or how easy it is. It is not like a straightforward domain. But moving on to the crux of the question, which was on specialist roles. So as I said, like based on the domain, the kind of roles and analyses depends on the kind of data you get. I'll just give some examples from the areas I've worked in, but this is not like an exhaustive list. It's just to get a flavor that there are so many different types of opportunities. So firstly, it's the healthcare area. So that was my first job at working at Rome Analytics in the San Francisco Bay Area. So healthcare involves a lot of areas, again, like medical device, to like disease identification and so on. Some interesting ones, which I like on the areas of computer vision. So this is so medical data, like things like scans of people. There's like a lot of analysis and prediction problems which come in there. To even what I worked on, which is natural language processing and understanding in the medical field. So you have a lot of text data, which comes from doctors' prescriptions to write-ups, and also the other side, which is things like disease classifications to device classifications to how those tie into insurance claims. So all that comes in the like natural language area, but there is so much more if you take healthcare ranging from like genomics. I'll quickly jump into two other areas. I'm conscious of time. So one other, so the other areas of companies is, say, for example, Booking.com or Facebook. So these companies, like Amazon, Google, they do a lot. There's obviously like a lot of different types of role, but I would say the backbone of the companies is some kind of optimization or ranking. So if you take Facebook, showing ads is effectively a ranking problem. If you take Booking.com, showing the top hotels is a ranking optimization problem. Amazon, same thing. So this ranking optimization recommendation is like another area commonly called machine learning engineers or software engineers, but it's at the end of the day, it's like a mathematical optimization problem. And maybe just one more example from a very different area. This I have not worked in. Maybe I just touched upon it when I was in Columbia University. That's the policy. So in Europe especially, you have a lot of government and research organizations which look to see if policy decisions actually have an effect on the people. Did they actually improve people's living standards, for example? These research and papers are heavily dependent on causal inference and like, say, natural experiments. So that's like another area which is pretty dominant. And I think the area of like economics, behavioral economics are the kinds of roles you get. So in summary, you have the general roles that we all talked about, but also like the specialist roles. And just to highlight, this is like not an exhaustive list, just to give you a flavor.
Okay, super. Thanks, Devini. I think that was really valuable. You brought up some industry-specific methods on problem solving. So I think that has been really valuable. Let's move on to the next question. This is for Rashmi. So Rashmi, I have a bit of a different question for you. Now, Dhanushi, Devini, and Mandu spoke about the different roles, the key knowledge areas, and skills required to be successful, and also the industry applications. Now, from your side, I want to bring a bit on employer perspective to the table, because you serve as a senior management position in a global analytics company. and you provide leadership to a team, and you entirely manage the business operation there. So I think you might have seen a lot of data scientists in your organization, and as an employer, what individual traits do you think they need to develop to be successful in their data science career, apart from all the knowledge areas and skills that other panelists talk about?
Yeah, thanks, Poornika, for the question. So in my opinion, there are several traits that any individual should possess to become successful in any career path, not just the data science path. So I will briefly speak about a couple of them and why these traits are important in the context of data science. And for sure, some of these would be like you would hear them as repetitive points from all of us and the previous speakers. The more we repeat it, the more important that fact is to become a successful data scientist. So because of that, please mind if I also repeat some of these points. So the number one I see is having a positive attitude. So when I'm hiring data scientists or any other employee for that matter, the first thing that I look for is that attitude. So the cultural fit, positive attitude is a must. This is crucial for any individual who wants to become successful, not just in terms of the career, but also in just life in general. And it will help you stay motivated and persevere through difficult tasks and setbacks at all times. And persistence comes next. Data science often involves complex problems that require time and effort to solve. So being persistent allows you to tackle those challenges with ease and find innovative solutions. Now I'm coming to one of the traits that I think is critical to become a data scientist, especially, that is creativity. I think Dhanushi and Mandu also brought this point out. So why? Because it enables you to think outside the box and come up with unique approaches to problems. So, and it helps in finding alternative solutions and pushing boundaries of what's possible. So if you're someone who has the technical skills to become a data scientist plus a creative mind, that means your success in this road is much ahead of many others who lack creativity. Which means having been involved in many extracurricular activities on top of your studies, whether it be sports, music, art, dance, creative writing, even traveling or any other activity apart from the technical, any academic studies would definitely help you in this journey. So these other extracurricular activities really can help, can stimulate creativity and help you approach problem solving from different angles. I'm audible, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I felt like something is off. Okay. I mentioned creativity earlier, and I also mentioned about thinking outside the box. But having outside of the box thinking is really not enough without the execution piece. So I wanted to highlight this because we always bring out this point outside of the box thinking, but without the execution, it doesn't help you at all. So having the courage to communicate, experiment, and implement new ideas is essential. So I've seen a lot of really good outside the box thinkers, but who are afraid to communicate because it's unconventional and you feel that it would be rejected. So the idea dies on the spot. So you should be willing to take risks. So more than the technical skills. So we skim through the resumes that we get, and we first filter through the academic credentials as like a starting point. But that's what we are really looking for in a candidate. So you would have to have a certain level of academic standing, but these skills are what we are looking for in who we hire for our companies. So the other ability is to see the problem through a user's lens. So for example, like understanding the end user's needs and perspectives actually allows you to develop more effective and user-friendly solutions. So you can either develop the more sophisticated high-tech data science application, but if it doesn't address the simple problems of the end user, all that effort would just be worthless. So you have to be able to get into their shoes and understand the problem. Intellectual agility is also crucial in this field because this field is constantly evolving. Not just data science, the technology, social landscape, they're all continually changing. And so having an open mind and being adaptable is necessary to keep up with the new developments and stay ahead. So intellectual agility is very crucial. And being self-motivated is also critically important in this data science career. This field actually requires continuous learning, staying up to date with new technologies, methodologies. Not just that, this is a job that you can do even 100% remotely, right? So if you're not self-motivated, it is easy, very easy for you to lose momentum, lose connections, and just to get behind your success. So you should be self-motivated to become successful. And the beauty of data science is that it is a field that any other field cannot live without. So the application solutions the data scientists develop will be solving problems for a diverse set of users who may or may not be tech savvy and especially not so savvy with data science terminologies. So what this means is a data scientist should be able to effectively communicate their ideas and solutions to non-data science or non-tech savvy audiences. So I think this was also a point that Dhanushi and other speakers brought out. So effective communication skills, self-motivation and creativity out of these traits that I talked about are very key in my opinion. And on top of all of these, the ability to trust your team is vital as both as a co-worker and as a leader. So collaboration and effective teamwork are essential in data science projects for sure. And trusting and relying on your team members allows for better cooperation as well as for successful project outcomes. So from the perspective of a leader, the easiest way for being able to trust your team is to put your best effort in hiring the best candidates. So as I mentioned earlier, the best candidates will often have good academic credentials, but what makes them the best candidates are their attitude and other skills I just mentioned. So I think in summary, along with the key knowledge areas and skills, possessing traits such as positive attitude, persistence, creativity, user-centric thinking, diverse interests, outside of the box thinking with execution, all of these things are the important ones. I hope that is a comprehensive summary.
Yes, pretty much. It's almost comprehensive and summarized. I don't have anything to summarize at all after this question. So we almost have a successful data science professional's profile now. So everybody talked about the knowledge and skills required, and the importance of soft skills and the importance of having the right attitude. So I think we are good to go for the second round of our questions. A quick reminder to the audience again, you can send in the questions via the Zoom chat. We'll be picking few questions at the end of the session. Just a reminder, keep your questions coming to us. So back to our question, the second round, I would like to mainly focus on the most commonly seen challenges in the data science field. I would like to start off again with Dhanushi. So Dhanushi, we all spoke about that data science is an evolving field and it's really difficult to keep yourself updated in the pace that the technology is advancing. So from your experience, I want you to share some of the strategies that you have used in personal life or upskilling yourself in the data science domain. And also any advice to the young data scientists in the audience, how they can keep themselves up to date in the knowledge stream.
Thanks, Poornika. Yeah, as you said, I think the only constant is that it's ever changing. So it's absolutely vital to have a continuous learning mindset. When if you are in this field, because if not, you will very soon kind of get outdated. And so I am very intentional in what I do, and with work. I mean, it can be time consuming, but to be very intentional in setting aside time to kind of focus on learning new topics and kind of reading what's happening in the field. So every week I set aside 2 hours during my work week to kind of focus on that. And I also engage in multiple reading groups that my team has to, with others to learn new things. And it also is, I mean, I know there are multiple people here who are managers. So this is kind of sharing at Microsoft what we do, or at least on my team, to kind of foster learning. We every month we have one day that is a learning day. And so people who have very specific expertise will then share, will give different talks, and everyone kind of can learn from each other. And so having something like that is very collaborative and helpful. And so, yeah, reading groups, attending conferences, you can follow influential people in your field on LinkedIn. They usually post articles and discussions, and people, engage with that. Then you can learn a lot from that. Looking for courses or areas that you think you need some extra reinforcement, you can go back and refresh yourself on things that you learned and may not use on a regular basis. And there are some research groups who are kind of on the cutting edge of certain technologies, so kind of following what they are working on, reading papers that they write, all can be really helpful. A few things to note, you have to be strategic in what you learn. I know there's been a lot of buzz around large language models. That doesn't mean if you're you have to go and learn every detail of how to build that. That might not be necessary for you. But kind of knowing, okay, this is this kind of emerging technology. How can I utilize this in my role? How can I make my work more efficient? So kind of applying that to you, and so that it has some direct impact in your work. Another way is, if there is some skill that you want to learn, kind of looking at the work you have to do and seeing where you can incorporate that to kind of incorporate learning into your day-to-day work is another thing that I've done. And finally, it's such a vast field. And I think it's important to be kind of compassionate to yourself that you will not know everything, and that's fine. You have to identify what your area of expertise is, and you can, for your own interest and, to be knowledgeable about other things, you can read and learn, but don't expect to know everything across the board. But I think what's important is to build confidence in yourself, that if you need to learn something, that you can learn it. That muscle of self-learning, I think, is the most important thing. And so that's kind of what I want to leave with any aspiring data scientists of, be kind to yourself, and build that confidence that, if you have to learn something new, something difficult, you can learn it, you can spend the time, you have the discipline to do that. Yep. So that's my answer, Poornika.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dhanushi. I think that was very impressive and really helpful. I picked some notes from what you have just described. So I think some of the tips that you have given, dedicate about at least 2 hours per week for your own learning. So you can dedicate that time just for learning, and to make it interesting, use reading groups and other collaborative ways of learning together so that it will not be boring and you'll be learning from each other. So that's again a one good point. And most important, to stay focused on and be strategic on what you learn. If you try to grasp everything, you will not be able to pick at least one domain into a sound knowledge in yourselves, right? So staying focused and dedicating some of the hours each week and put that learning into practice is some of the tools, the techniques that you would advise the young generation. Yeah, so moving on to our next question, I would like to come back to Devini. So Dhanushi spoke about the main challenge of staying up to date. So from your side, I want to bring a bit of regional perspective of the challenges that you see, because you have worked across multiple regions, Asia, North America, and now you are working in Europe. So in your day-to-day job role, what are the additional challenges apart from staying up to date with the knowledge? What additional challenges that you see? And does it differ significantly from region to region?
Okay, thanks, Poornika. So I'm going to just add like a little bit to this question. So when it comes to, especially because you mentioned the regional aspect, now this doesn't apply if you are working remotely, but the first thing you need if you want to work in a certain region is a visa or immigration. And so the good news is across pretty much the world, STEM fields, which data science is one, is a highly in-demand area. And because of that, there are multiple types of visas ranging from skilled ones to also like global talent ones, which are more specialized. But what you can do with that visa changes from region to region. So for example, in the US, yes, you can get the visa, but the privileges, say for your spouse or your family, whether they can work or not, is actually quite restricted. Opposed to say Europe or say Australia, there the restrictions can be more relaxed. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I know the conversation is on data science, but to get to data science, you also need to tie up your personal life on how you actually physically get there. And this has been like a challenge for me across the years when I work, because it's always in the back of your mind, like, am I stable in this country? The other angle I also want to bring in before quickly diving into more specifics again is the work-life balance across regions. So for me, the US was kind of similar to maybe Asia, like say India and Sri Lanka, where work is actually quite central to your life. And of course, there are nuances and it's hard to generalize, but it is not uncommon to have, say, long working hours. But if you take Europe, it's not, I'm not saying that people work less, but say it's more, not even regulated, but culturally, you can have flexible hours, but when you work, you work. And when you do personal stuff, you do personal stuff. And say, even at work, when you have, say, your lunch break, you like stop, you get your 1 hour, you sit down and you eat. It's not like at your desk gobbling your food. So work-life balance does change from region to region. I'm not saying, say, Europe is better than, say, the US. It depends on what your style is. Some people do want like kind of an intense working culture, and that's when they perform the best, while others prefer a more relaxed working culture, but that's when they get, say, ideas. So it depends on the person, but I want to just highlight those differences. Speaking on like getting to like the day-to-day aspect, I want to build upon what like Rashmi and Dhanushi was talking about, and this is around visibility. So there are two angles I want to bring out. So the first thing is, if you take us, this forum, for example, we are women, STEM field, famously introverted, and also from South Asia. And all those buckets are very famous, I think, for not popularizing, or for lack of a better word, selling ourselves. And when it comes to a company, it is important to show that, hey, I did this. I'm not saying not in a boasting sense, but to show that I am capable of doing these things. To promote yourself and know that, like, get recognition for yourself, but also to promote the work you did, so other people know, hey, you did this, and they will use it for something. So another angle of this visibility, again, very common in data science, is I've seen companies where the data science team is kind of siloed. So you can't just keep data science in this little bundle. It has to go with the rest of the company. It's part of, like, the product or the company. So it's part of the team. So what happens when you're in this little silo is that, say, the product team might not understand what you have found out and might not use it. And the other angle which all of the panelists spoke about is communication. They might not understand what you have done. So like a very common thing is, say, in the medical area, is the use of a p-value. Everybody talks about p-values. Not everyone understands p-values. So communicating it in a way that can be actually actionable is a big challenge, as well as not being integrated with the team. So those, I would say, are like the main parts. There are a lot of other challenges that I have faced, which, again, this is like common across all regions, which is working with messy data and bad documentation. Like every single company I join, I'm like, oh, this will be better, but it's not. There is a muscle, as Dhanushi said, you need to develop in trying to like gather the understanding what this data is, and like just probing. Sometimes it's just a matter of asking people to understand, okay, in this table, what does this field mean? And that's probably one of like the biggest challenges I have, like working with messy data. So I'll end up on like a minor sounding problem, but that was probably, it's like a very common one.
Okay. Brilliant. I think, Devini, you brought up some very valid points. I think being South Asian women, we always have this mindset, like we have to do the job, but we don't have to go and tell others that we did this and that. So, but maybe in corporate world, you might have to show your capability so that everybody knows that, okay, this was done by you. So that's something not to boast, but to show others that you are adding value to the business. So I think that's a very valid point. I would like to leave the audience to think about. And moving on to the next question, we are a bit behind our schedule. So I would like to quickly jump into the next question. The next question is for you, Rashmi. Very quickly, I want to understand from your experience and expertise, are there any significant challenges for women in the data science field? And are there any ways to mitigate these challenges and to provide a more inclusive and supportive environment for women in data science?
Yeah, sure. So there are several significant challenges we often hear when it comes to women in or entering into the data science field. But the level of significance really depends on the region, culture, and many other factors. So Devini touched upon the region component and several others. Though there are challenges, efforts are being made to address some of these challenges and create a more inclusive and supportive environment for women pursuing careers in data science. One of the key general challenges faced by women is the gender bias and underrepresentation. However, at least in the Sri Lankan context, I believe this is gradually diminishing, because I have come across more female data scientists than male data scientists in Sri Lanka. I have to say, I don't have a statistically significant or validated hypothesis around this, but this has been my observation for the past 5-6 years, and the trend is encouraging. But it is important to continue promoting gender equality and diversity in the field. Another challenge is the lack of role models and networks. As you may already know, the term data scientist itself is relatively new, and it took time for it to gain recognition properly in the industries. And in Sri Lanka, the role of data scientist started to become prominent only in the very recent years. So this lack of role models and networks actually can make it a little bit difficult for the beginners to access guidance and support. So initiatives like this webinar and similar forums definitely help bridge this gap by providing opportunities for networking and mentorship. So the other critical thing is work-life balance and family support, because balancing work responsibilities with personal obligations, especially in like Asian regions, especially for women who take on caregiving roles, can be very demanding. So organizations can really support work-life balance by offering flexible work arrangements, promoting family-friendly policies. Additionally, resources such as child care support can be provided to ease that burden. So, and without the support from your family, it really becomes harder for a woman to climb up the corporate ladder. I do say this because I have the 100% support from my family to come this far. So if it wasn't there, I can't imagine how life would be. So education and skill development are some challenges that women may experience. In some communities and regions, women are not encouraged to pursue a good education, so particularly in STEM education. So like having coding boot camps or providing scholarships might help in boosting the interest and the ability to come into these fields. And when it comes to these, the ones that I mentioned are more general challenges that are like kind of our external factors. But on a personal level also, things like imposter syndrome and lack of self-confidence can block a woman's progress in data science. So many women and even men may doubt their abilities and sometimes attribute their success to luck or external factors. So creating spaces for open discussions around this and providing mentoring and coaching support can help overcome this issue. And when you move up the corporate ladder, in general, the male-dominated societies aren't too happy to follow a woman leader. So, but even in such communities, there are occasions women are welcomed and supported in leadership roles. So I see both these tendencies in Sri Lanka and even in the global context, where they support or block women's leaders. But the global improving diversity and inclusion is actually helping to move away from these issues. So I think those are to face as a woman specifically.
Okay. Thank you, Rashmi. I picked one sentence that you talked about, that having lack of role models for females. So I think in this discussion, we don't have to look far to look upon to the role models. The audience can look upon to all of you as role models. So I think that's why we need this kind of conferences to empower more women to participate in data science. We should have more and more such conferences and webinars where we showcase the female data science professionals so that others can look upon and build their self-confidence to enter into data science. Okay, we have completed 2 rounds of questions. So the next is our last round of questions. So in this one, I want you all to speak up about your personal experiences and map your career paths and whatever your inspiring stories to share with the audience. I will again start with Dhanushi. So Dhanushi, we often talk about career planning. We often talk about career paths, but most of the time in real life, career paths are not straight lines. So even in your case, you started from the industry, then you moved to academia, you pursued your PhD there, and then you returned to industry. Would you be able to map your career journey and then give us a brief description about some of the key success factors that you have attribute your success to becoming a senior data scientist at Microsoft today?
Thanks, Poornika. So after my undergrad at USC, I started working at Amber Research, as it was formerly called. And my manager on the first day there basically told me, you should work here for 2 years and then you should go and do your PhD. And my undergrad advisor also, kind of told me this. And so it was at the back of my mind. And when I was working there, I really enjoyed the type of work I did. It had a very nice balance of my stats knowledge, and I was using a lot of programming. And so I knew this is something that this is what I want to do. I want to be in industry. But I knew that for me to kind of go to the next level and also to be able to explore other opportunities, for me, that it might be necessary for me to do a PhD. And so some of the reasons why I chose to do a PhD in the US is one, I had an undergrad degree, and my degree was industrial statistics, which is more kind of applied. And so without doing a master's, going into a PhD program, I wanted to make sure that I have a really good foundation. So, and the US system, you have a lot of coursework that you have to do before you, progress into, your research and all your dissertation work. And so that was really important for me to kind of be confident in my knowledge. So that was one, and it's a long program. On average, it takes about 5 years to complete. The second thing is the school that I picked, Penn State. There was flexibility in not having to pick my advisor from the onset. I basically picked my advisor after the first year, so I could go there, get to know different professors, and then pick that. The third thing is with PhD programs, most of the time it's fully funded, and so from a financial aspect, it was, it made sense for me to do it. And then finally, the rigor and it's grueling, but it also helps you build, your resilience, I would say. And so that was another reason. But so although I then switched, into grad school for 5 years, I always had the goal that I would be in industry. So I was very intentional about the choices I made during my time at Penn State. So one was I, got involved as a research assistant at the Statistical Consulting Center, where we would have, other graduate students, other faculty from across the university come to get help with their experiments and their research. And that was a really good experience for me to build my communication skills, on the spot kind of thinking. And it's almost like you get case study practice doing this. So that was one thing that I did for 2 years. So I was very intentional in that, where I chose to do that, but I didn't teach. Because it was very clear to me where I was going. And the type of research I did was very kind of computation heavy. I also went for multiple internships. So it all kind of was geared towards industry. And so and that put me in a good position to kind of take the next step. At Microsoft, so one thing I want to say is a PhD is not necessary, like it's not required. And I can, talk about my team at Microsoft, where we have people who are after undergrad degree with a bachelor's, with a master's, with PhDs. The only difference is the level in which you come in. After that, it's really about how you create impact on the team that will, you will progress. Now, that is not for every data science team, because some are very specialized. So, in such cases, perhaps, your PhD research is very closely tied on, the problem that they're trying to solve. And in such cases, maybe, they're very specific in whom they pick. But I don't want to deter anyone thinking, this is a necessity. It's a good to have, I would say, but there are other things to kind of keep in mind. It takes a long time. It's 5 years. Another thing I want to kind of mention is transitioning from one to another. Like I have one of my co-workers was a math professor for 8 years. And then now is a principal data scientist at Microsoft, but she still is adjunct faculty and she still teaches. So you can kind of balance these and kind of transition. It's more common to see people from academia moving into industry rather than in the opposite direction. For immigrants, you have to be a bit careful because it's different immigration visas and it gets a bit complicated. But there is flexibility in that transition. And Poornika, you mentioned my success factors in, getting to where I am. I think, a strong work ethic is absolutely necessary. That's one. I've also had really amazing mentors, and Devini and Mandu have helped me so much from university days to grad school days and then internships and things like that, to having people that you can talk to who have kind of gone before you is awesome. And Rashmi, she actually also is at Penn State, and when I first got accepted, I actually communicated with her, and she put me in touch with people at Penn State that really made my time at Penn State wonderful, because I went there knowing people, and it was not me all by myself in a new country, and I didn't have anyone. So seeking out mentors and having a strong work ethic, having a goal, and that can change. These things can change, but having something to keep working towards is I think important. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dhanushi. Thanks for sharing your personal experiences in your journey. I will quickly jump into the other question. This question is for you, Devini. So I want you to provide a concise answer, maybe within 2 minutes, since we are a bit behind the schedule. So Devini, you have worked across different regions and you have experience in working and leading multinational companies. So I think you are the best person to give a perspective on workplace diversity. So the question for you is, from your personal experiences and observations at your workplace, what you have seen in terms of gender diversity at the workplace, and are there any practical tips you can share with the audience if you happen to work in such environment? What kind of tips you can use to mitigate such challenges?
Got it. Okay, so with the 2-minute time bound, I'll be try to be very quick and focus on the tips. Rashmi already spoke a lot about the diversity factor for women. So first thing is I don't normally like putting people into buckets. I want to say that if you are part of a team, for me it's immaterial whether you're male or female or what region you come from. If you're good, you're good. But it is a fact that the type of person you are, maybe your circumstances, if you're a new mother, or female, or I mean, there are like so many things which can affect how you work. That is, of course, important. And also super quickly, I want to say this is also, I know it's a Women in Data Science conference, but you have teams where you're the only woman or a few women in a male-dominated team, but you can also be the only man in a female-dominated team. Or you can be very young when everyone's old, or very old, very common in the tech industry when everyone's young. So there are a lot of dynamics here. In terms of what it helps, to me, the first thing is don't be afraid that you're like this unique person or nobody like you has gone into that area. It's okay. Yes, it can be challenging, but sometimes, or because you're maybe different in certain ways, doesn't mean that's a problem at all. You can fit in, and bringing a diverse point of view is actually a plus. You might be thinking in a different way. So I'm not just saying this because it's like a nice thing to say, but it's genuinely a plus for the company and for the team to bring that diverse perspective. So number one, don't be intimidated. The second thing is, if it is a problem, solve it. Like recognize what the issue is, and try explain it to someone who values your work. So maybe your manager, come up with a solution and figure out what it is. So maybe it's like a solution, for example, could be flexible working hours. And the final thing is that if you're in a position of influence, either as a manager or someone senior or in any way, if you see a person who is in this like not so common group, try to help that person. Figure out a way to how to like merge the situation, whatever the solutions are, convince HR or the people department to make it work. Sometimes just like little changes can make a world of a difference. And sometimes people may need support. Maybe it's like a health problem for like a short period of time. So like taking the ownership to help others as well is like the other thing I want to say. So just 3 things. Don't be afraid, go for it. Also recognize if you do have issues, so don't ignore it, solve it. And then if you're in a position to help others, do that. I won't be here where I am right now if like, so probably have like a very long list and we don't have time for this, but like a lot of people have stepped in to help me to get to where I am.
Okay. Thank you, Devini. Thank you. I really concur with what you said. Don't be afraid to be the outlier of that group, right? You can always bring your perspective, and especially in data science, since we are doing problem solving, it's really adds value if you bring a different perspective. So that's what I also believe in, not just gender diversity. I think all other means of diversity we should encourage in the workplace to have this different perspective. So thank you for that. I will quickly go to Mandu for the next question. I think the question is partly kind of answered by Dhanushi as well, but I want from your personal experiences, Mandu, what kind of external support or resources were most beneficial in your personal journey? It could be mentorship, training programs, or professional networks, whatever the way, additional support, external support or resources that were benefited to your journey.
Yeah. So I think in general, like having a strong network, like a professional network, through peers, like your friends from university is like essential. And I think Dhanushi gave examples, and they also shared like some kind of examples of how they benefited. I think like, so there are like obvious benefits, like, getting visibility to the trends of the industry, getting opportunities where you wouldn't have got otherwise, maybe to like switch to a different role. Like, I think one thing that's not probably like very well articulated is that when you have like a strong like network or, peers, you have access to, talk to them and get their perspective and what they have gone through. So when you hear these, that, if you're facing some difficulty, that you're not the only one who's facing this. Like, they also have gone through these challenges, and that, you can feel confident about yourself. So I think that is actually one of the most biggest things that I have got or like, benefited from my network. So for an example, when I was trying to move into like causal inference and like A/B testing, I actually reached out to a lot of people in my like master's program, or like my friends. I think Devini is one of them, because she had a lot of experience in this area. And it was like really easy for me to like learn from them on like what kind of skills that I need to polish up. Like how do I face interviews, like even sharing maybe interview questions on like, like their past experience basically, and like preparing it, because data science is actually quite competitive, right? Like, I mean, it's gaining popularity. So a lot of people are moving because there are like more jobs. At the same time, there is like a very tough competition, but that doesn't mean that, you can't get through. It's just that you need to be very prepared, like very crisp with your answers, and like you got to be like really good at like basically facing those interviews. So I think I have benefited a lot when it comes to interviewing through my network. And also I just want to talk a little bit about the like non-technical aspects. So here, you can also learn from your network on how to navigate like workplace challenges. I mean, there are lots of challenges like through where you need to kind of go through and like basically maybe going into like a different level, how to kind of figure out like maybe influencing your stakeholders, and how to grow in your career, like role in general. Right. And I think one thing also Rashmi mentioned is like at early in your career, I feel it's quite tough to find the people that you really want to talk to. So in those cases, I think I really encourage to like reach out to those people. I think it might be maybe like a cold email or like a message. It's like it's basically like, how many times do you knock on the door, and like, if you knock on like 10 times, at least one person will like answer, right? So don't be afraid to reach out for help, because I mean, if people have time, they will definitely help you. And also when it comes to your turn, make sure you like really pull them and help them to like achieve whatever the goals that, they can achieve, like by giving the right guidance. Because then in return, actually, you will also learn, because I mean, it's like, it goes both ways. When you kind of help someone, we also learn from them what they go through. So I think in a nutshell, like those are like my kind of experiences.
Okay. Thank you, Mandu. Thank you again for sharing your personal experiences with the audience. So the last question on the panel discussion today, this is for you, Rashmi. So you are a panelist with a PhD and now sits at a senior management position in a global analytics company. So comparing your success in career progression, I would like you to give some advice to the women in data science who aspire to climb the corporate ladder.
Sure. Yeah, so I also I have to mention, I went through a similar path like Dhanushi, only a couple of years earlier than Dhanushi. So I graduated from University of Colombo, then joined AMBA Research, which is now Acuity Knowledge Partners. And then after 2 years time, I went for the PhD, and I served for the Statistical Consulting Center. And I also, like, maybe one difference would be until recently, I worked as an online instructor for World Campus at Penn State as well. So everything that Dhanushi mentioned, all the success factors applies to me equally. So I will skip that part, and I will focus on a couple of different points that I believe that worked for me. The first thing is believe in yourself. This is key, because no one else can elevate you if you don't have the confidence in your own abilities. So believe in yourself, that's the key. And as I mentioned earlier, persistence and positive attitude are also key to success. So life will inevitably present challenges along the way, but it's important to accept them, stay determined, and find solutions while staying true to your principles. So I emphasize this, while staying true to your principles. So you don't change, like, it's not being flexible or anything like that, but you have to have a certain set of basic principles as a person, and go through these challenges. So don't let setbacks discourage you. Instead, view them as opportunities for growth and learning. So while it's important to have goals, I encourage you not to chase titles. So instead, focus on doing what you do to your best level and continuously expand your best level. So you do what you do at your best level today, and you expand. It means tomorrow your level best would be something else, and you will naturally grow, and that will help you climb up the corporate ladder, or not just the corporate ladder, even in your personal life, that will take you to great heights. And one other thing is, don't compete with anyone else. Always learn from others, appreciate others, but don't compete with them. Your competition has to be with you. So wherever you are today, you have to think of becoming a better person tomorrow. So you compete with yourself, not in a harsh way. That way you will naturally grow, and whatever happens externally is just something that happens. So you can focus on your own success. And as Devini also mentioned, I really believe an important aspect of achieving either leadership roles or like becoming successful in life is to help others, not just with their career, but also personal growth. Be a friend, be a mentor, not just to women in data science. Anyone who needs help. So always like be giving your hand to anyone who is in need. So in conclusion, my advice to women in data science looking to climb up the corporate ladder and achieving leadership position is to believe in yourself, be persistent, have a positive attitude, and don't compete with yourself, and help others. So I think that's about what I believe that got me into where I am today.
Okay. Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you. That was really valuable advices. And I think we have concluded in terms of our 3-question rounds. Thank you for sharing all the personal experiences with the audience. All of your journeys are wonderful and inspiring, and we have learned a lot from your stories, and I'm sure the audience has enjoyed listening to all of you. Since we have almost ran out of time, I will just pick one question from the audience. I will give the question, put the questions to the panelists, and whoever wish to take that up, you can answer the question. So the question is, can the panel provide a game plan for someone who's looking for remote jobs from Sri Lanka, or someone who likes to work in data science field abroad? Shall I read the question again? Can the panel provide a game plan for someone who's looking for remote jobs from Sri Lanka, or someone who likes to work in the data science field abroad? I think the question is asking whether you all can provide some direction for a person who like to work from Sri Lanka for an overseas company remotely on data science. Yeah. Anyone willing to take up the question?
Yes, so there are like Devini touched upon some of these regulations and like visas and all, like not, I think there was a piece to not the remote portion, but also to finding a position abroad, right? So Devini covered that piece. And first of all, if you really need to, are looking for a job role as a data scientist who needs to work 100% remotely, reach out to me. I have been contacted by several of my contacts asking if there are interested candidates who I can vouch for to work for certain companies abroad, like for example, Canada and so on. So you can direct message me. That would be one game plan. And we have all of us have mentioned how to become a successful data scientist. And when it comes to 100% remote data scientist job roles, the game plan is really to have these soft skills that we talked about, and the ability to like having a basic foundation, proper solid basic foundation, but having the ability and the belief that you can self-learn anything that you are put to work on. So you don't have to, like Dhanushi mentioned, you don't have to know everything, but if you know, you can learn on the spot and you can get help from others. Once you have a sense of what you need to do, it's become so much easier. So just have the solid foundation and develop your soft skills, and that would be enough, irrespective of the region or the culture that you're looking into join as a remote data scientist, because you can just keep away from some of these factors when you're working from home. So what you need to build on is the necessary skill set.
Okay, Rashmi, thank you so much for that game plan that you indicated at the beginning. I think for the person who wanted to have that game plan, they can directly message Rashmi. You can go to her LinkedIn profile. All of us are in LinkedIn. You can stay connected with us. So thank you very much. I think we are almost ran out of our allocated time. So I would like to conclude this panel discussion for today. To all the panelists, thank you so much for taking your time to participate in the panel discussion. We really, really appreciate your presence today. And big thank you to the wonderful audience for joining this. And I hope you enjoyed the session and you learned something from our panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Poornika. So we hope the discussion broadened your minds. And also thank you very much to all our panelists for sparing your valuable time to bring this insightful session for all of us. So next,